Section 2, First Love. In this section, I will describe a very special person who came into my life in 1990. Her name was Celta Camille Head. This was before I met Lynn, but it is an important story about my development and the development of this larger story depicted in this book. It's impossible to overstate how important, meaningful, and life-changing this was for me. It might have been just 1 year, but 3.5 decades later, every moment, every second of being loved by Celta speaks to me in a way that says, I am worthwhile. This reality was not something I would have realized from my family of origin, in stark contrast to the first 23 years of my life, which yielded so few meaningful memories that entire years blur together. This single year with Celta would provide enough vivid, transformative moments to fill an entire section of this book. Every conversation, every touch, every shared glance remains crystal clear 3.5 decades later, not because I'm romanticizing the past, but because for the first time in my life, I was truly seen and loved. Chapter 6, Meeting Celta. I stumbled across a high school yearbook photo of Celta Camille Head on Ancestry.com years after we met, and it sent shockwaves through my body. She would have been 16 in that photo, radiant with a kind of quiet, haunting beauty. I never knew her in high school. She was 8 years older than me. And yet, when we finally crossed paths, it was as if I had just awakened for the first time in my life. The few photographs I once had of her, the ones I took in those fragile months we spent together, are gone now, lost before the age of digital backups. That loss still stings, but her memory has never left me. When we met, I had just graduated from Georgia Tech, riding high on the belief that the future was mine to conquer. I had mapped it all out: career success, independence, a new life built by my own hand. Instead, I moved back in with my parents, a decision that would cast a long, oppressive shadow over everything that followed. Yet somehow, even within that suffocating darkness, a spark ignited. In 1990, I met Celta. At the same time, I was volunteering with the social work team at Georgia Regional Hospital, a sprawling state psychiatric hospital. The work was profound, humbling, and exhilarating. It awakened a passion in me I hadn't known existed, an instinctive call toward psychiatric social work and toward healing. I had come so far already. College had been my laboratory of transformation. 5 years of brutal work to overcome shyness, social anxiety, and an aching sense of isolation. By my senior year, I was amazed by how much I had changed. The person who had been left alone on that August day during orientation, before classes even began, could never have imagined things could change so much. I was choosing a once impossible to imagine new career direction, drawn to psychology by the very transformation I was experiencing. I realized I was actually an extrovert who had been trapped by anxiety and poor social skills. I was ready for professional success. Yet I was a shy extrovert. Despite my amazement at how much psychology had helped me grow at Georgia Tech, something in me remained dormant, lifeless except in dreams and imagination. Despite all my progress, crucial personal goals remained unachieved. I had never experienced what I'd consider a real romantic connection. I wasn't even sure my interaction with the girl at the post office counted as an actual date. And despite my academic success, I still couldn't bring myself to speak up in class discussions. What I wasn't prepared for was to meet someone who would see me in a way no one ever had. Celta was that person. Wednesday, January 3rd, 1990. I met her on a cold Wednesday afternoon. She had been admitted for anorexia, her tiny frame whittled down to less than 60 pounds, 4'11" and dangerously fragile. And yet when I first saw her pacing in frustration across the hospital room, she emanated a presence that seemed impossibly larger than her body. When our eyes met, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Not the fear or clinical distance I might have expected, just recognition. "Hi, I'm Bruce," I said, stepping toward her. "I'm a volunteer with the social work team. I'm off duty now. I just wanted to meet you." She smiled, truly smiled, and in that moment a connection was forged. She suggested we go outside. There was a porch swing out front, and we sat together, side by side, letting the world drift away. For once, I didn't rehearse my words or second-guess myself. I simply was, and so was she. I told her I wasn't there to gather information. "I'm not here in any official way," I said. "I just wanted to talk." She smiled again. That smile, the way it reached her eyes, felt like an invitation into a world I didn't know I was longing for. She listened to me with an intensity that startled me. No one had ever listened to me like that before, like I mattered, like my voice wasn't just tolerated, it was wanted. She made no demands, offered no judgments, and for the first time I felt seen, not as a project to fix, not as a future professional, not as someone who needed to achieve something to matter. I was seen as me. Celta had very little family support. She spoke only of her parents in passing, and her loneliness hovered around her like a second skin. In her presence, something ancient in me began to heal, the part that had always wondered if I was invisible to the people who should have loved me most. We sat together almost every day until she was discharged. We walked the grounds. We talked about pansies and how their petals seemed to hold faces, their expressions mirroring our moods. We marveled at small things. I told her stories about my life, and she listened with rapt attention, as if every detail mattered. And yet, even amid the sweetness of those early meetings, I knew there were risks. Ethically, there were supposed to be boundaries between patients and staff, even volunteers. This is something I appreciate now. At the time, it was unclear because I was entering a radically different field than engineering. I counted on staff to guide me in matters like this. That's why I had showed up to volunteer on the social work team. And there was another complication. I was still living with my parents. I wasn't free to defend someone I loved if she were judged or criticized. I didn't have the independence yet to say, without fear, "This is someone who matters to me. You don't get a say." I wasn't yet in a position, after returning to living with my parents, to speak up if and when they expressed their judgmental views about Celta. That had to wait still. Still, no one on staff ever warned me off. Everyone seemed to sense the purity of what was growing between us. Celta soon began writing me letters, long, sprawling diary entries where she cataloged the smallest details of her days. Sometimes she mailed them. Sometimes she handed them to me when I visited. She wanted me to know her world, all of it. It was magical. It was terrifying. It was confusing. It felt like love. And that was a new experience for me. I know most people don't even try to put the love of a parent in the same category as the love of a romantic partner, love of a girl, love of a girlfriend. Yet for me, I knew there was something wrong about not having known love ever before, even from my caretakers, my parents. At some level, I was making that connection between what I had needed my whole life and what I now found. She trusted me. I trusted her. We were two broken people who, for a moment, found wholeness in each other. March 1990. In March, 2 months after we first met, she pointed to a bed of pansies and said, "Look, they have faces." I paused, and for a second I could see it too. Their petals smiled and frowned back at us, as if the flowers themselves were alive to our joy and our sorrow. Celta asked me once if I would draw her, how I saw her. I told her I couldn't draw, but that I could paint her with words. Maybe she wondered if I saw her as beautiful. I did, so much more than beautiful. Her name, I later learned, was chosen by her father, a nod to Celtic and Gaelic traditions. Her sister's name, Gael, followed the same theme. There was a kind of poetry to it, as if, even in naming, her family had gestured toward something ancient and mythic without realizing it. When she was discharged, she returned to Augusta, Georgia. Our friendship continued to grow. I worried about her constantly, her health, her loneliness, her future. I had met her during one of the darkest periods of my own life, and yet through her a new world cracked open, a world where love wasn't a reward for performance, but a reflection of being seen, cherished, wanted. And though I couldn't have known it then, Celta taught me the first lesson I would need to build the life I later found with Lynn, that it's not enough to love. You have to be willing to stand for the people you love. I wasn't ready yet, but I was beginning.